So, welcome to tonight's live. Tonight, we are going to talk about the connection between food and our mood and figure out a little bit more about what that is. My name is Rochelle. I am a registered dietitian and exercise physiologist and your host for the Dietitian Resource Community. Let's dive into tonight's conversation about what is the food and mood connection. And it can be a game changer when you understand how to build your meals in a way where it build sustainable moods that are balanced and help you maintain energy level and all of those things. So I would love to introduce this topic to you tonight. This is going to be a three-part series, and tonight is part one of that series. So as you can see on the screen now, we are going to dive into this topic a little bit more, but over the three-part series, we are going to be identifying the neurotransmitters that are linked most with food. Then we're going to talk about the food choices that lead to the specific nutrients that are needed for creation of neurotransmitters. And then we're going to talk about how we can grocery shop for those foods and build balanced meals to connect with eating and connect with feeling better overall. So we're going to start with just a quick outline and making sure that everyone understands basically all of these topics are going to be covered in our three-part series. So definitions are really important for me. I like to start with the foundational learning. Let's talk about first, what is food? This one's pretty easy. It is a nutritious substance that actually gives our body what it needs to survive and thrive, and then also grow, because it is really important for us to grow throughout the life cycle. And that is a big part of the sustainability of our body and also other living beings. Oops. So nutrients that our body needs to survive include water. We can't survive without water. We also need carbohydrate, protein, fat, and vitamins and minerals. Another great important thing to include here is the fiber component that is included in a lot of our carbohydrate containing foods. So it is really vital that we do include a good balance of all of these nutrients in our diet. So the next question is, well, what is mood? Mood is a temporary state of mind or feeling, and that is the Oxford language definition. And there are so many emotions and feelings out there. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but there's these really cool emotional wheels and pillows. I actually have one right here. I'll hold up to the camera. It's going to be really small, but if you can see that, this is kind of what the emotion wheel looks like, and it kind of is linked with moods. So it is something that is really helpful for identifying where we are throughout the day, but they are temporary states of mind or feelings. So some examples might be excited, sad, angry, sick, surprised, happy, unhappy, bored, frustrated, joyful, fearful, humorous, all of those sorts of things. And they all are linked with either a situation that we're dealing with, but they can also be associated with nutrients that we are eating, or here's the secret, the lack thereof, right? So let's talk about the brain connection with food and mood. Our body communicates through a series of cells called neurons, and these neurons have basically some dendrites at the end, kind of like little fingerlings that are bringing in the message from the body into the cell. And then what happens is, as that message comes into the cell body, it is sent down through the axon of the neuron, and then that is sent to the next neuron. So it's really an intricate system, and our body and our brain actually is made up of 100 billion neurons. I can't even wrap my mind around how many neurons that is. 100 billion neurons in your amazing brain and body. This is the way our body communicates. So things like hormones are communicated through neurons, electrical impulses, and neurotransmitters are supported by these neurons and these connected neural pathways within our brain and our spinal column. So rad. So rad. So let's talk a little bit about the neurotransmitters themselves. Neurotransmitters are these messages that are sent through the neural pathways, and they send messages in the form of chemicals throughout our body. And the ones that are most associated with food, there's 4 of them. There's serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, and GABA. And you've probably heard a lot about these neurotransmitters, but we don't really think about the way that food are connected with these neurotransmitters. So let's talk about first what these neurotransmitters do, and then next week we're going to dive into really how these are created with specific nutrients. So the role of neurotransmitters in mood, let's talk about each of them separately. This is a big topic, so hang on tight. We're going to dig in. We're going to start with neurotransmitters. So the neurotransmitters that we're starting with will include serotonin, and it is found in the brain and the gut. 80% of it is found in the intestines, which is something of a new finding. We thought the most of it was found in the brain, but now we're finding that 80% of it is in the intestines, which is where the brain-gut connection comes from. And all of those pieces are making it really more clear how intricately connected our body is to our mind. So the role of serotonin in mood is it does help regulate our mood overall. It helps with sleep patterns. It can reduce our appetite. It can also help with pain tolerance, body temperature, and lowering aggression. So it kind of chills us out. If we do have low levels of serotonin, it can lead to signs and symptoms such as confusion, depression, anxiety, more pain sensitivity, poor sleep, difficulty concentrating, carb cravings and increased appetite, constipation, increased aggression, reduced sex drive, feelings of guilt, and feelings of unworthiness. So that's on the low level. So that's why serotonin is so important for feeling good. It's known as the feel-good endorphin, right? High levels of serotonin can include things like shivering, diarrhea, muscle rigidity, fever, seizures, irregular heartbeat, agitation, and high blood pressure. So it is really important that, again, if we do have this more regulated level of serotonin, it can just regulate our mood and kind of chill us out and make us feel pretty good overall. The next one is dopamine, and this one is one that, we hear a lot about, specifically with getting dopamine hits from our cell phone. So dopamine is synthesized in the brain and the kidneys. If it's in the blood, it can't cross the blood-brain barrier. So keeping that piece in mind, dopamine does inhibit norepinephrine. It acts as a vasodilator, meaning it can lower blood pressure. It increases sodium and urine output, reduces insulin production, reduces gastrointestinal motility and protects intestinal mucosa, and it reduces lymphocyte activity. So the things that it does in the role of our mood, it does help us with, increasing our movement, helps with memory, motivation, pleasure, reward, behavior and cognition, focus and concentration, attention, inhibition of prolactin, and it helps with sleep, our mood, learning, and impulse control. So if we don't have enough dopamine, this can lead to a lot of loss of motivation, more sensitive to pain. It has been shown to be connected with Parkinson's disease, restless leg syndrome, even ADHD, lack of motivation, fatigue, like inability to feel pleasure and apathy, procrastination, a reduced sex drive, sleep problems, mood swings, hopelessness, memory loss, inability to concentrate, and depression. So dopamine is also very important. High levels of dopamine can lead to anxiety, increased aggression, impulsiveness, paranoia, unnecessary movements, repetitive tics, psychosis, hypersexuality, and nausea. So again, having this be in a balanced place is really important for maintaining a regulated mood. All right, next we have norepinephrine. So norepinephrine, this one is known as kind of the neurotransmitter that is associated with fight or flight, meaning that it can lead to more excitation or excitability. Excuse me. It is one of those things that we know it is connected with motivation. And the role of the norepinephrine in our mood is concentration, balanced mood, improved energy, and a reduced perception of pain. So, like the other neurotransmitters, low levels can really impact things. Low levels can be associated with chronic stress. And when we have chronic stress, our stress response can become desensitized. So, that fight or flight piece can be really diminished. This can lead to apathy or inability to have pleasure, depression, weight gain, lowered sex drive, fatigue, lowered energy, and poor ability to concentrate or focus. High levels of norepinephrine, when we are faced with, high levels of stress or threat, this hormone can be elevated for a long period of time, and this can lead to addiction, fear, depression, compulsive behaviors, mood swings, ADHD or problems with concentration, excess energy, anxiety, poor sleep, elevated heart rate, and increased blood pressure and irritability. So definitely a lot of really important things to keep in mind with these neurotransmitters in how they are associated with mood. We've got one more to look at, and that is GABA. So GABA is kind of the new kid on the block as far as the one that we're researching in its connection with mood. GABA, close to 40% of the synapses in the human brain work with GABA, so it is really important. The role in mood is it is an inhibitory neurotransmitter. It does the opposite and tells the adjoining cell not to fire. So it's an anti-anxiety type of thing or anticonvulsant, and it is made from glutamate. So if there are low levels of GABA, if there's not enough, then it can lead to more anxiety, depression, difficulty concentrating, insomnia, seizure disorders, and then high levels can lead to excess sleepiness, shallow breathing, decreased blood pressure, memory problems, dizziness, blurred vision, slurred speech, and weakness overall. So the important thing to keep in mind is many of these neurotransmitters do overlap. So you'll see, for norepinephrine, it is responsible for these pieces of our mood and our energy level, but it's also the same with focus and attention as dopamine. Dopamine really focuses on memory, motivation, clarity, pleasure, and reward, but it also is part of focus and attention. Serotonin, learning, memory, pleasure, pain, relaxation, and positivity, but it also is connected with norepinephrine in that it's linked with anxiety, impulse control, and irritability. And then it's connected with dopamine because it's also associated with appetite, aggression, and sex drive. So if we have a balance of all of these pieces, we will have an overlap of balanced moods. But if we do have a high or low version of these, then we can see some of those signs and symptoms that we were talking about earlier in those other tables. So I just wanted to share this interesting connection because neurotransmitters are directly linked with our mood, but we also know that there are some that are directly linked with the food that we're eating too. So these ones in particular, including GABA, are the 4 highest associated neurotransmitters that are linked with food. So that is our overlap of how food and mood are connected. I hope that that was really helpful for you tonight. I'm going to check the chat here and see if we've got any questions. But of course, you can always drop your questions in the chat, and I'd be more than happy to come back and revisit things as they come up. So thank you guys so much for coming tonight. Again, I hope this was really helpful for you. You have a fabulous evening, and we'll see you next time. Take good care. Good night.